All right, let's dive deep into this fascinating world of the Ajna Chakra, the third eye.
Mm,
We're looking at a transcribed excerpt from a Hindi lecture by Osho.
okay.
And wow, he really goes in on the Ajna Chakra's connection to willpower, freedom from while being controlled,
Right.
and even some pretty wild claims about like physical mastery. Okay.
Shosha's take on the Ajna Chakra is definitely striking.
Oh yeah, he's not holding back at all. He just straight up says that if your Ajna Chakra is inactive, you're basically like enslaved,
Yeah.
always jumping from one kind of control to the next.
Yeah, his point is that without a fully awakened and active Ajna Chakra, true freedom is, well, kind of tricky. It's like we often end up looking for validation or approval from outside ourselves instead of trusting our own inner guidance, right?
Yeah, it's like you finally break free from, say, a sugar addiction and then bam, you're consumed by work deadlines. Or maybe you get out of a toxic relationship and then you're like desperately seeking validation from, I don't know, someone else.
Exactly. It's almost as if we're constantly searching for that feeling of security and direction. And if we haven't really developed that inner compass, we'll always end up looking to, well, things outside ourselves to find it.
So for those listening, think about it. Do you really feel in control of the choices you make? Or are there these forces, whether they're coming from inside you or from the outside, that just seem to have way too much influence over what you do?
It's definitely something to consider. Now, Osho takes this idea even further, saying that when you activate your Ajna chakra, you can actually control your body, like stopping bleeding, controlling your heartbeat.
Wait, hold on. That sounds almost supernatural. Is there like any scientific evidence to back up these kinds of claims?
Well, while those claims might seem a bit out there compared to what science usually tells us, there is more and more research happening on the mind-body connection. Things like biofeedback and psychoneuroimmunology are showing just how deeply our thoughts, beliefs, and even our feelings can affect our physical well-being.
So maybe these ancient teachings are onto something more than we realize. It does make you wonder if we all have this hidden potential inside us, stuff we haven't even begun to tap into. Now, Osho also talks about using tilak, that mark on the forehead, as a way to stimulate the Ajna chakra. He specifically mentions sandalwood and its special properties.
Sandalwood has been used in spiritual practices for a long time, especially in the East. It's thought to have this calming and grounding effect on the mind.
So it's not just a symbolic thing. He's saying the material itself actually has a significant impact.
Right. Some people even believe that sandalwood can make you more intuitive and spiritually aware.
He even warns against using those modern decorative bandhas. It says they can actually block the Ajna chakra's energy. What do you think about that? Could something as simple as a forehead decoration really mess with our energy centers?
It's a fascinating idea, isn't it? It makes you think about how these subtle energies might actually interact with our physical bodies and whether certain materials might have unique vibrations that can actually affect our energy field.
It's like, choosing the right fuel for your car. You wouldn't put something in your tank that's going to clog up the engine. You want something that's going to make it run better, right?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Osho seems to be emphasizing how important it is to be mindful and intentional about, well, the practices we use, especially when we're dealing with something as subtle as our energy centers.
It makes you wonder if there are other things in our lives, things we might not even think about, that could be messing with our energy flow, things we just don't realize.
That's a really good point. It kind of highlights how everything is connected and that even the smallest choices we make could be having a ripple effect on our overall well-being.
Now, Osho brings up another interesting point about the Ajna chakra. He connects it to gender. He says that women have a weaker Ajna chakra, that it's more designed for surrender and devotion than willpower.
This is where we need to be careful. These ideas come from traditional interpretations, but they can be pretty controversial these days.
Absolutely. We have to remember that Osho's perspective is influenced by the culture and society he lived in. We need to be careful about spreading outdated ideas about gender roles and what people are capable of. But it's still interesting to look at his reasoning and, well, see if there's a deeper message there.
Yeah, for sure. Osho seems to be saying that women's strength might be expressed in different ways. Not weaker, but different.
That's a good point. He's not saying surrender is bad, just that it can be powerful in its own way.
Exactly. When we talk about a spiritual journey, surrender could mean letting go of that ego-driven need to control everything, embracing trust in a higher power or a greater purpose.
Like letting yourself be guided by something bigger than yourself, trusting that life is unfolding as it should, even when you don't have all the answers.
Right. And in relationships, surrender could be about letting go of that need to always be right, making space for deeper connection, real intimacy. It's about vulnerability and trust, which are crucial for any healthy relationship.
So even though Osho talks about it as women having a weaker Ajna Chakra, maybe what he's really getting at is how important it is to balance willpower and surrender, no matter what gender you are.
That's a really insightful way to look at it. It reminds us that these ancient teachings can be interpreted in different ways, and it's up to each of us to find the meaning that resonates with us personally.
Now, Osho also connects the Ajna Chakra to, believe it or not, hypnosis. He points out that when someone's hypnotized, they become incredibly receptive to whatever the hypnotist is suggesting, almost like they're temporarily giving up their own will.
What's really interesting here is how similar that focused attention in hypnosis is to activating the Ajna chakra. In both cases, there's this heightened state of awareness where you're super receptive to a specific source of information or influence.
It's like when you focus your attention really hard on a thought or an idea, you create this pathway for that information to bypass all your usual filters and go straight to your subconscious mind.
Right. And this brings up a really interesting question. Can we use this power of focused attention in our everyday lives to actually change our thoughts, our emotions, even our physical experiences?
That's a powerful idea. If we can learn to control our attention well, imagine what we could achieve.
It opens up a whole world of possibilities. And as we continue to explore Osho's ideas in part 2, we'll delve deeper into the techniques and practices that might help us unlock that potential.
So stay tuned as we uncover more about this fascinating world of the Ajna Chakra and what it means for living a more conscious and empowered life. And we're back, diving deeper into the fascinating world of the Ajna Chakra. Before we took a break, we were talking about its connection to hypnosis and how focused attention might be a key to unlocking its potential.
Yeah, and that ties right back into what Osho said about using tilak, particularly sandalwood, to stimulate the Ajna chakra.
Right, we were talking about sandalwood's unique properties and how it's been used in spiritual practices for, centuries. What is it about sandalwood that makes it so special? Why use that specific material?
Well, sandalwood is believed to have this calming and grounding effect on the mind. A lot of people use its aroma during meditation to help quiet those racing thoughts and just create a sense of inner peace.
So it's not just about putting the tilak on. It's about the energy of the sandalwood itself. Like it's a tool to focus and refine our attention.
Exactly. And that kind of goes along with Osho's warning about those modern decorative bindus, the ones he says might actually block the Ajna chakra's energy.
It's interesting how he makes that distinction between the traditional practice and, the modern way people do it. It's
Yeah.
almost like he's saying that what you're thinking and feeling when you do the practice is just as important as the practice itself.
Yeah, and it goes back to the idea of mindfulness and awareness in our spiritual practices. It's not enough to just go through the motions. You have to really be present, be intentional with each action.
So if someone is listening and they're really intrigued by this idea of using sandalwood to stimulate their Ajna chakra, where should they start? Would just putting some sandalwood essential oil on their forehead be enough?
That could be a good way to start, sure. But it's super important to approach any kind of spiritual practice with respect. Do your research, maybe look into the traditional methods of applying tilak and what specific type of sandalwood is used. These things can be different depending on the specific tradition or lineage.
That's good advice. Always good to do your homework, right?
Oh.
And approach these practices with an open mind. Okay, so we've been exploring the Ajna chakra and its link to willpower, freedom, even physical mastery. But we touched on something earlier I'd like to get back to, surrender.
Right, and that connects to what Osho said about the Ajna chakra and, gender. He said that women have a weaker Ajna chakra because their nature is more geared towards surrender and devotion.
Now, I know this can be a touchy subject, and we want to be clear that we're not saying this is the absolute truth, but I do think it's important to look at different viewpoints, even if they challenge our own beliefs. See if there's something we can learn from them.
Definitely. We need to be thoughtful and critical when we have these conversations. After all, ideas about gender roles and how people express themselves have changed a lot over time.
So if we put aside the whole gender-specific part for a minute, what can we learn from the idea of surrender itself? Is it really a weakness, or could it actually be a source of strength?
That's a great question. The word surrender often has this like negative feeling to it, like you're giving up or admitting defeat. But what if we think of it as choosing to let go of control? Releasing that need to force things to happen our way.
So instead of fighting against the flow of life, we're going with it, trusting that there's a bigger plan, even if we can't see the whole picture.
Exactly. And that can be so freeing. It doesn't mean we become passive, just that we're surrendering to what is, accepting things, and letting life unfold in its own way.
It's like instead of trying to row your boat upstream, you're letting the current carry you, trusting that you'll get where you need to be, even if it's not the route you had in mind.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and I think it really highlights how important it is to find that balance between willpower and surrender. It's not about one being better than the other. It's about knowing when to push and when to let go, let things happen naturally.
It's like a dance between effort and ease, control, and letting go. Maybe that's what Osho was getting at, even though he said it in the way that might feel outdated now.
That's a really insightful way to look at it. It reminds us that even teachings that seem a little problematic or outdated on the surface can still offer some real wisdom if we're willing to dig a little deeper.
Now, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about something else Osho mentioned. The idea that activating the Ajna Chakra can lead to physical mastery. We talked about the research on the mind-body connection, but how does that relate specifically to the Ajna Chakra?
Well, if we think of the Ajna Chakra as that place where our awareness comes from, where we focus our attention, then it makes sense that strengthening this energy center could also strengthen our ability to influence what happens in our bodies.
So it's not like the Ajna Chakra has this magical power over our bodies. It's more that by developing our awareness, our mental focus, we can tap into the body's natural healing abilities and, well, influence how it works in ways we're just starting to understand.
Right. Think about things like mindfulness, meditation, even biofeedback. These techniques are all about training your attention, becoming more aware of what's going on in your body.
And we're seeing more and more evidence that these practices can really impact our physical health. Reducing stress, improving sleep, regulating blood pressure, even boosting our immune system.
Exactly. And while we might not be able to just think about stopping bleeding or control our heartbeat like Osho suggested, there's definitely a growing understanding that the mind plays a much bigger role in our physical well-being than we used to think.
It's like we're discovering a whole new world of possibilities. And the Ajna Chakra, with its connection to awareness and focused attention, might be the key to unlocking even more.
It's a really exciting idea, isn't it? It suggests that we might have way more control over our health and well-being than we've been told.
And this brings us back to Osho's comparison of the Ajna Chakra to hypnosis. We were talking earlier about how hypnosis puts you in this super receptive state. Could it be that by activating our Ajna Chakra, we're basically putting ourselves into a kind of self-hypnosis, making ourselves more open to the thoughts and beliefs we choose to focus on?
Now, that's an interesting thought. It suggests that by developing those qualities associated with the Ajna Chakra, awareness, focus, intention, we could actually reprogram our subconscious minds, change our thoughts, emotions, even our physical experiences in really powerful ways.
So instead of being controlled by our unconscious programming, we could actually choose what thoughts and beliefs we want to empower. We could become the masters of our own minds.
That's really what the Ajna Chakra is all about, empowering us to live with intention, with purpose, with a deep awareness of ourselves. It's not about controlling what's happening around us. It's about mastering what's happening inside us, understanding that true freedom comes from within.
That's a powerful message, and it leads perfectly into our next segment, where we'll be exploring some practical techniques and practices that can help us activate and harness the amazing power of the Ajna Chakra. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the Ajna Chakra. Wow, it's incredible how much we've learned already.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From willpower and freedom to, well, even the idea of physical mastery and self-hypnosis through the Ajna Chakra.
It's really made me think about all the potential we have inside us, just waiting to be, unlocked. So as we wrap up this exploration, I'd love to focus on the practical side of things. If someone is listening and feels inspired to actually start activating their Ajna Chakra, what would you recommend? Where should they begin?
It's fantastic that you're feeling inspired. That's a great first step. But remember, activating the Ajna Chakra isn't about suddenly gaining some mystical power overnight. It's more of a journey, a process of discovering yourself and connecting with your inner world on a deeper level.
So it's more about subtle changes and Like a gradual awakening rather than some kind of dramatic overnight transformation.
Exactly. It's about making these practices part of your everyday life, weaving them into your routine instead of thinking of them as separate, isolated things you do.
That makes sense. So what are some specific practices that people can actually start doing to, nurture their Ajna chakra?
Well, we already talked about applying tilak with sandalwood, which can be a really powerful way to stimulate this energy center.
Right. And you mentioned the importance of researching traditional methods and, well, approaching this practice with respect and reverence.
Absolutely. Now, beyond that, there are tons of other practices that can help activate the Ajna chakra. Meditation, for example, is a core part of so many spiritual traditions, and it can be incredibly helpful for developing awareness, focus, and that inner stillness.
Are there any specific types of meditation you would recommend for someone who's really focusing on their Ajna chakra?
Well, there are so many different forms of meditation out there. The best one for you really depends on what you like and what you need. But practices that involve visualizing light or energy at the point between your eyebrows, where the Ajna chakra is located, can be particularly helpful.
So it's like using your imagination to direct energy to that spot, almost like shining a mental spotlight on it.
Exactly. Another powerful practice is tritaka, which is basically staring steadily at a single point, often a candle flame.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Doesn't it help improve focus and concentration?
Yes, it can. And it can also help awaken the Ajna chakra and make your intuition stronger. Now, even beyond those formal practices, there are plenty of things you can do in your everyday life to support your Ajna chakra.
Like what? What kind of things?
Pay attention to your dreams. They can give you some really valuable insights into your subconscious mind. Spend time in nature. Connect with the beauty and peacefulness of the natural world.
Those are great suggestions. It's like we're creating an environment that helps us grow on the inside, both through dedicated practices and just by being more mindful in our everyday lives.
Exactly. And remember, consistency is key. Don't get discouraged if you don't see results right away. The Ajna chakra, like any part of us, needs time and care to really blossom.
It's like taking care of a garden. You have to water the seeds, give them sunlight, and be patient as they slowly start to sprout.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And as we nurture our Ajna chakra, we might start to notice some interesting changes in how we see things and how we experience the world.
What kind of changes? What should we be looking for?
Well, our intuition might get stronger. Our decision-making might become clearer. We might feel a greater sense of inner peace and, a connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Those all sound like really positive changes. It makes me think about something Osho said about activating the Ajna chakra, leading to a sense of garima and integrity. What do you think he meant by that?
He was basically saying that as this energy center becomes more active, we start to feel more whole and integrated. It's like all the different parts of ourselves, our thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, start working together in harmony.
So it's not just about gaining some kind of external power or ability. It's about cultivating an inner alignment and a sense of wholeness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that inner alignment can have a ripple effect on every area of our lives. When we feel whole and integrated, we're less likely to be swayed by external pressures or get stuck in those self-sabotaging patterns.
We become more resilient, more confident, more in control of our own lives.
Exactly. And that's the true power of the Ajna chakra. It empowers us to live with intention, with purpose, with a deep awareness of ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Ajna chakra, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought-provoking question to consider. If you could truly activate and harness the power of your Ajna chakra, what would become possible for you? What kind of life could you create? What impact could you have on the world? It's been an amazing journey exploring these ideas with you.
It really has. Those are big questions, and the answers are different for everyone. But one thing's for sure, when we explore the mysteries of the Ajna chakra, we start a journey of self-discovery that can change our lives in incredible and unexpected ways. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Ajna chakra. We hope it sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore the amazing potential that exists within each and every one of us.
Remember, the journey starts within. Take a deep breath, connect with your inner wisdom, and trust the unfolding of your own unique path.
Please like, share and subscribe.